For centuries, the Kingdom of Korea lived an isolated existence, cut off from the world around it. After generations of inward seclusion, Korea came to be known as the Hermit Kingdom. Then in the early 1900s, she fell to the Japanese Empire, ending 1,000 years of independence. Since then, the outside world has greatly influenced the peninsula, but you only need to look at Korean folklore for signs of its former isolation. Much of Korean folklore has remained unchanged for centuries. It could be said one of the strongest links between Koreans is that of the legends they tell, as on either side of the border can be found uniquely Korean legends. Legends telling of dark forces, deranged killers, and horrifying creatures. There was once a wise old general who at the age of 80 was facing death by illness. He knew death was coming, but refused to accept this and came up with a plan to live on. After his death by illness, the gods of death would emerge and remove his soul from his corpse. But the general had a way to prevent this. He pushed a silver pin into his skull, being careful to avoid his brain, believing silver wards off evil and would prevent them from claiming his soul. Within the week he was dead, and as planned the gods were unable to remove his soul. But there was one thing he failed to prepare for. Unaware of his plan to reawaken from the dead, his children buried him. Days later he was revived, reawakening in the dark. As life came back into his limbs, the general realized he was inside a coffin, trapped underground. Then he ran out of air and suffocated to death, only to soon reawaken and suffocate again. Perhaps this torturous cycle is still continuing to this day, somewhere underground. The streets of South Korea's capital are known to be frequented by some kind of terrible presence. On dark nights it can be seen wandering as if it were human. From a distance nothing would seem out of the ordinary, but on getting close enough you notice she is deformed and walking with a limp. You hear the crack of broken bone and cartilage as her head turns around. Her blood-filled eyes look directly into your soul, and she asks you, "Where is my baby?" In that moment your life will be in her hands. If you possess the sense to point in a direction away from yourself, she will wander towards it, giving you a chance to escape. But if you find yourself frozen with fear, she will assume it was you who took her child. It would be a fatal mistake. In medieval Korea, it was believed that women had a divine responsibility to marry and have children. If a woman were to die before achieving this, she would be cursed. Reduced to a form of existence between life and death, they now walk the earth endlessly, without hope of salvation. Driven mad by this endless fate, all they have left is envy for young women who are alive. And so they spend their days terrorizing women, haunting entire villages until all local women are driven away, so that maybe they too will die before marriage. At the traditional border of China and Korea is a lake within the crater of an active volcano. Now known as Heaven Lake, it has long been seen as a place of mystery and legend, but since 1903 it has been feared and avoided like never before. In that year, a terrible monster emerged from the lake. Larger than an elephant, it looked like the mutated offspring of a buffalo and a seal, and for its size, the beast could move quick. Before being able to retreat, 6 locals were bitten in half by it. Surely more would have died if a group of hunters were not there to witness the attack. It didn't die after being shot 10 times, but did retreat back to the lake, disappearing below the surface. The incident was never explained, and from that day people on either side of the border have been reluctant to approach Heaven Lake, worrying they might provoke the monster it contains. Somewhere out there exists a hideous and dangerous creature known as Dokkaebi. The Dokkaebi are small but powerful, carrying around a blood-stained wooden club. With that club they possess the power to summon any object to them. Dokkaebi are not evil. In fact, they often try and help humans, only to find people scared away by their appearance, being red-faced with bulging eyes, large horns, and twisted limbs. Unable to handle this rejection, they are known to sometimes resort to stalking, and after months of watching their chosen victim, beat them to death with the wooden club. However, even worse a fate is reserved for some who willingly interact with them. Dokkaebi are often followed by an outbreak of disease that moves with them, infecting the world with horrific illness as they travel through it. Knowing the effects of some of such diseases, being beaten to death can seem like a blessing. Atop a remote hill in South Korea stands YEONGDEOK House. Just outside a small fishing village, amateur hunters from all over Asia come here to investigate the house for themselves. According to local law, it was built in a Korean War mass grave. No one thought ill of building a house here, but in the months and years that followed, countless tragedy occurred. It began with the suicide of a young girl who lived there. Before long, her parents were also dead, as were the building's next inhabitants. Every single person to call it home died untimely deaths, dissuading anyone from buying it. Word got out that all who enter the house die soon after, and so it has been abandoned for decades, slowly falling apart. Local shaman offered the only explanation for such a long chain of tragedy, that an enormous serpent-like phantom occupies the house, driving inhabitants to commit suicide. Years ago, an outbreak of foot and mouth devastated the Korean countryside. As the disease swept through towns and villages, countless lives were at risk. Being spread by livestock, the government resolved this by having over 1 million cattle put down and buried in mass graves. But it was not just cattle who met this fate. On a dark night, a man passing by a remote town began to hear strange noises. It was the wailing of a stranger in distress. In the dark, he followed in the direction of such wailing, until stumbling upon a mass cattle grave. The sight and stench of hundreds of decaying cattle left him dizzy, but still he continued following the sound. Eventually, the wailing sounds just stopped, leaving the man to search on in the darkness without direction. For hours he looked on until sunrise revealed his true surroundings. Now able to see clearly, he realized the corpses around him were not of cattle. It was a mass human grave. High up in remote mountains lurk a kind of faceless spirit who wish only to be left alone. Stay clear of their mountain and no harm will come to you, but accidentally wander into their home and you will find a terrible sight. With long hair and no face, just looking into the sockets where their eyes should be can cause instant death. Anyone who looks directly at them will die, but avoid this and you will not yet be safe. Faceless ghosts are known to stalk those who disturb them, following their victim wherever they go, driving them insane and scaring away anyone they are close to. After losing everyone you care about, you might willingly look at the ghost, just to end the torment. We do not know how, but one in every generation of foxes survives for over 1,000 years, slowly over time becoming more than just a fox. Known as Gumiho, they now have 9 tails but can easily shapeshift, taking on the appearance of any living creature. Yet they are not satisfied with such a life, and strongly desire to become human. To do this, they must eat the heart of 1,000 men. The Gumiho have 1,000 days to kill 1,000 men. Fail this and they must start again. Of all the ghosts in Korean folklore, none are more feared than water spirits. They are pale and soaking wet no matter where they appear. Having drowned to death, they are forever destined to walk the earth, searching for victims to join them. Encounter a water ghost, and you will be dragged back to the body of water they haunt, and held underwater until it is your grave also. That body of water is where the ghost originally drowned, be it a lake or river or even a well. Happen upon this body of water and in a matter of seconds you could be under the surface, held down by the long arms of a water ghost.
This is Korea.